Nobody wanted him. Not his coworkers, not his neighbors, not even the people who were supposed to be his friends. Marcus Cole was the kind of man people looked through, not at. He existed in the background of every room he walked into. Invisible, forgotten, dismissed. But here's the thing nobody expected. The most powerful being in the entire galaxy. A queen who commanded fleets of warships, who ruled over 17 star systems, whose name made entire civilizations go silent. She noticed him. She chose him. And when she did, the whole universe stopped and stared. This is not a fairy tale. This is not a coincidence. And it is definitely not what you think it is. In this story, you are going to discover 3 things that will completely change the way you see strength, worth, and power. First, you will find out why the alien queen passed over thousands of warriors, generals, and kings to sit beside one ordinary man. Second, you will learn the secret quality that Marcus had, something so rare that even he did not know he possessed it. And third, you will uncover the shocking truth about what real power actually looks like, and why the universe always finds a way to reward it. Stay with this story. Every single part matters. Let me show you exactly how this happened. His name was Marcus Cole, and on the morning everything changed. He was already running late. He grabbed his gray uniform jacket off the back of his chair, clipped his name badge to his chest, and jogged out of his small apartment on the east side of New Detroit. The city was loud and gray and always moving. Hover cars buzzed overhead. Street vendors shouted. Holographic billboards flashed news headlines in bright neon colors. Marcus barely noticed any of it. He had the same routine every single day, and he followed it like a machine. He worked security at the Meridian Sports Complex, the biggest stadium in the entire North American sector. It was a massive structure, all glass and steel and flashing lights, capable of holding over 90,000 people. On big event nights, it was the most exciting place on earth. But for Marcus, it was just work. Just another shift. Just another day of standing near a gate, checking passes, and being ignored by everyone who walked past him. He was 31 years old. Average height. Average build. Brown hair, blue eyes, a face that was pleasant enough but not the kind that made people stop and look twice. He had no special rank. No impressive title. He had worked at the Meridian for 6 years, and in those 6 years not one person had ever promoted him, celebrated him, or even remembered his name without looking at his badge first. His supervisor, a loud man named Garrett, called him the Ghost, not as a compliment. "Cole," Garrett would say, barely glancing up from his tablet, "you are the most forgettable person I have ever employed. You show up, you do your job, and then you disappear. You are basically furniture." Marcus never argued. He just nodded, went back to his post, and did his job. That was who Marcus Cole was. Quiet, steady, invisible. But on this particular morning, the city was buzzing with something different. Something that had never happened before in the history of Earth. Something so massive, so unprecedented, that even Marcus, who never paid attention to the news, had heard about it. The galactic delegation was coming. 3 weeks ago, a signal had arrived from deep space. Not a random transmission. Not a glitch. A formal, structured, perfectly translated message from an interstellar civilization called the Vael Empire. They were coming to Earth. They wanted to open diplomatic relations. They wanted to observe humanity up close, and they had chosen the Meridian Sports Complex as their first public appearance site, because, according to their message, they had been watching Earth's broadcasts for decades, and they found the concept of competitive sport to be a fascinating display of controlled aggression and tribal loyalty. The whole planet had gone into a frenzy. World leaders scrambled. Military forces were placed on standby. Scientists argued on every news channel about what this meant for humanity. Religious groups held vigils. Conspiracy theorists went absolutely wild. And the Meridian Sports Complex, Marcus's workplace, became the most important building on the planet overnight. Security was tripled. New protocols were issued every hour. Garrett walked around with a headset on, barking orders and sweating through his shirt. The entire staff was briefed, rebriefed, and briefed again. Everyone was told to be on their absolute best behavior. Everyone was told that this was the most important event in human history. Everyone was told that the eyes of the galaxy were watching. Marcus listened to every briefing. He followed every new protocol. He memorized every updated procedure. And then he went to his assigned post, Gate 7, Section D, Upper East Stands, and he stood there, just like he always did. Gate 7 was not the important gate. It was not where the world leaders were sitting. It was not where the cameras were pointed. It was not where the Vale delegation was expected to walk. It was a side entrance, mostly used by regular ticket holders, far from the main event floor. Nobody important ever came through Gate 7. Of course they didn't. This was Marcus Cole's gate. The stadium filled up fast. 90,000 people poured in from every entrance. The energy was electric, nervous and excited, and almost trembling. People were dressed in their best clothes. Some held signs. Some wore flags. Some were crying already, just from the anticipation. The massive screens inside the stadium showed a live feed of the sky above the city, where 3 enormous Vale ships hung in the atmosphere like silver mountains, completely still, completely silent, completely impossible. Marcus watched the screens from his post. He felt the same thing everyone else felt, awe, and a little fear, and something else he could not quite name. Something like recognition, like this moment had always been coming, and he had just been waiting for it without knowing. The ceremony began at noon. A Vale shuttle descended from the largest ship and landed on the stadium floor with a sound like a deep, resonant bell. The crowd went completely silent. 90,000 people holding their breath at the same time. The shuttle doors opened, and the Vale delegation stepped out. They were tall, much taller than humans, most of them standing close to 7 feet. Their skin ranged in color from deep violet to rich crimson to pale silver. Their features were sharp and elegant, with high cheekbones, large eyes that caught the light like gemstones, and an air of absolute, unshakable authority. They moved with the kind of grace that made every human in the stadium feel slightly clumsy by comparison. And at the center of the delegation, walking slightly ahead of everyone else, was her. The Queen. Her name, as the world had learned from the translated transmissions, was Valara Keth, Queen of the Vale Empire, ruler of 17 star systems, commander of the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy. She was young by Vale standards, though nobody knew exactly what that meant in human years. She looked, to human eyes, like a woman in her late 20s, breathtakingly beautiful, with deep crimson skin that seemed to glow faintly under the stadium lights. Long black hair that moved like it had its own gravity, and eyes the color of molten gold. She wore armor, not ceremonial armor, real armor, dark and angular and clearly functional, with a crown built into the helmet that rose above her head like the fins of some ancient deep-sea creature. She carried no weapon visibly, but everyone in that stadium understood instinctively that she did not need one. She walked to the center of the stadium floor, stood before 90,000 silent humans and every camera on the planet, and she looked around slowly, taking everything in, measuring, assessing. Then she did something nobody expected. She did not go to the VIP section where the world leaders were seated. She did not take the ceremonial throne that had been specially constructed for her visit. She did not follow the carefully planned diplomatic protocol that 100 government officials had spent 3 weeks preparing. Instead, she turned. She looked up. She looked across the stadium, past the floor seats, past the lower stands, past the mid-level sections, all the way up to the upper east stands, all the way to Gate 7. Section D. All the way to where Marcus Cole was standing, and she started walking toward him. The entire stadium watched. The cameras followed. Garrett's voice crackled through Marcus's earpiece. "Cole, what is happening? What did you do, Cole? Cole," but Marcus could not answer. He could not move. He could not think. He just stood there at his post, in his gray uniform jacket, with his name badge clipped to his chest, as the most powerful being in the galaxy walked up the stadium steps toward him. She stopped 3 feet away from him. She looked at him, really looked at him, not through him, not past him, not at the badge on his chest. At him. At his face. At his eyes. And then, in perfect unaccented English, because the Vael had been listening to Earth's broadcasts for decades. She said something that would be replayed on every screen on the planet for the next 100 years. She said, "May I sit with you?" Marcus blinked. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Around him, security personnel were frozen. Government officials were scrambling. Cameras were zooming in from every angle. 90,000 people were completely, utterly silent. Marcus Cole looked at the alien queen of 17 star systems, standing in front of him asking permission to sit beside him, and he did the only thing that felt natural to him. He nodded. He gestured to the empty seat beside his post, and he said, quietly, "Of course. Please." She sat down, and the universe was never the same again. Nobody in that stadium moved for a full 30 seconds. 90,000 people. Hundreds of cameras. Dozens of world leaders in the VIP section below, all of them staring up at the Upper East stands with expressions that ranged from confusion to outright panic. The carefully planned diplomatic ceremony, the speeches, the handshakes, the symbolic exchange of gifts that had been rehearsed for weeks, was completely derailed. Because the alien queen was sitting next to a security guard named Marcus Cole. Garrett's voice was still crackling in Marcus's earpiece, but Marcus had quietly turned the volume down. Not because he was being disrespectful, but because he could feel, with absolute certainty, that whatever was happening right now was not something that Garrett's instructions could help with. Valara Keth sat in the stadium seat beside him with the same calm authority she had carried across the stadium floor. She did not look uncomfortable. She did not look confused. She looked exactly like someone who had made a deliberate choice and was completely at peace with it. She watched the stadium. She watched the other Vael delegates, who had stopped moving and were now standing in a loose formation on the stadium floor, waiting. She watched the screens. She watched the humans around her, the ones in nearby seats who were pressed as far back as their chairs would allow, staring at her with wide eyes and open mouths. And occasionally, she glanced at Marcus. Marcus, for his part, was doing his best to remain professional. He was a security guard. He was on duty. His job was to maintain order and ensure the safety of everyone in his section. The fact that the most powerful being in the galaxy had just sat down next to him was unusual. But his job was still his job. So he stood at his post. He kept his eyes moving across the section, checking for anything out of the ordinary. He kept his posture straight. He kept his expression calm. After about 2 minutes of silence, Vaelara spoke. "You are not afraid," she said. It was not a question. Marcus considered this. "I am a little afraid," he said honestly. "But being afraid does not change what I need to do." She turned to look at him fully. Those golden eyes were extraordinary up close, deep and layered, like looking into something ancient. "What do you need to do?" "My job," Marcus said simply. Something shifted in her expression. It was subtle. A slight softening around the eyes. A barely perceptible change in the set of her mouth. If you were not paying close attention, you would have missed it entirely. "Your job," she repeated. "Even now, especially now," Marcus said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The others, your leaders, your officials, they are very upset." Marcus glanced down at the VIP section. She was right. He could see the frantic movement, the urgent whispered conversations, the aides running back and forth with tablets. He could see the expressions on the faces of the world leaders, a mixture of diplomatic horror and barely concealed jealousy. "Yes," he said. "They probably are. Does that concern you?" Marcus thought about it. "I will probably get fired," he said. "But that is not really my concern right now." "What is your concern right now?" He looked at her directly. "Making sure you are safe and comfortable in my section. That is my job." For the first time, Vaelara Keth smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real, and it transformed her face from something intimidating into something almost warm. "You are a very unusual human," she said. "I have been told I am very forgettable," Marcus said. "That," she said, "is the most incorrect thing I have heard since arriving on your planet." Down on the stadium floor, The Vale delegates had begun to move again, taking their positions for the ceremony. The world leaders were being guided back to their seats by frantic aides. The cameras were still pointed at Gate 7, Section D, but the ceremony was slowly, awkwardly resuming. Valara watched it all from her seat beside Marcus. She did not move to rejoin her delegation. She did not signal to them. She simply watched, with that same calm, measuring expression. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said, after a while. "You may," she said. "Why here? Why?" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Why me?" She did not answer immediately. She looked out at the stadium, at the 90,000 humans, at the screens showing the ceremony below. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than before. "We have been watching your world for a long time," she said. "We have studied your broadcasts, your communications, your history. We have observed your leaders, your warriors, your scientists, your artists. We have built very detailed models of your civilization." Marcus listened. "When we decided to come here," she continued, "I spent a long time studying the individuals who would be present at this event, not just the leaders. Everyone. I wanted to understand your world not from the top, but from all levels." She paused. "I found something interesting," she said. "Among all the people in this stadium today, the presidents, the generals, the diplomats, the celebrities, there was one individual whose behavioral pattern was unlike any other." Marcus was very still. "Consistent," she said. "Reliable. Calm under pressure. No performance. No agenda. No attempt to be seen, or noticed, or rewarded. Just," she seemed to search for the right word. "Just present. Fully, completely present. Doing exactly what needed to be done, exactly when it needed to be done, without any expectation of recognition." She turned to look at him again. "In the Vale Empire," she said, "that quality has a name. We call it Velkara. It translates roughly to the strength that does not need to be seen." Marcus did not say anything. He was not sure what to say. "It is the rarest quality in the known galaxy," Valara said. "I have met kings who did not have it. I have met warriors who spent their entire lives trying to find it. I have met scholars who wrote entire libraries about it without ever understanding it." She looked at him steadily. "And I found it," she said in a security guard at Gate 7. The stadium roared below them as the ceremony reached its first major moment. A symbolic gesture of peace between the Vile delegation and Earth's representatives. 90,000 people cheering. Cameras flashing. History being made on the stadium floor. But up in Section D, in 2 seats near Gate 7, the most important conversation on the planet was happening quietly, between a queen and the man nobody had ever noticed. And Marcus Cole, for the first time in his life, felt something he had never felt before. Not pride. Not excitement. Not the dizzy rush of sudden fame. Something quieter than that. Something deeper. He felt seen. The ceremony lasted 4 hours. Valara stayed in Section D for all of it. Her delegation completed the formal proceedings without her. The speeches, the symbolic exchanges, the carefully worded declarations of peaceful intent. The world leaders shook hands with Vile representatives and smiled for the cameras. History was made, technically, on the stadium floor below. But every camera in the world kept cutting back to Gate 7. By the time the ceremony ended, Marcus Cole's face was on every screen on the planet. His name was trending across every social platform. News anchors were scrambling to find information about him, his background, his history, his life. What they found was not very dramatic. Born in Manchester, England. Moved to New Detroit at age 22. 6 years of security work at the Meridian. No criminal record. No military service. No special achievements. No remarkable history of any kind. Just a man. Just a job. Just Gate 7. The world could not understand it. Talk shows erupted with debate. Politicians gave statements. Scientists offered theories. Religious leaders offered interpretations. Everyone had an opinion about why the alien queen had chosen to sit beside a nobody from Manchester instead of taking her place among Earth's most powerful figures. Marcus was not watching any of it. He was still at his post. When the stadium began to empty, Valara stood. She straightened her armor, adjusted her crown, and looked at Marcus one more time. "I would like to speak with you again," she said. "Formally. Through the proper channels." "I am not sure I have proper channels," Marcus said. "You will," she said. And there was something in her voice, a certainty, a quiet confidence, that made Marcus believe her completely. She walked back down the stadium steps, rejoined her delegation, and was escorted back to the shuttle. The doors closed. The shuttle rose, and within 20 minutes, it had returned to the ship hanging in the sky above the city. Marcus finished his shift. He checked that his section was clear. He filed his end-of-shift report. He clipped out his earpiece, in which Garrett had been completely silent for the last 3 hours, and he walked to the staff exit. Garrett was waiting for him there. The man looked like he had aged 10 years in one afternoon. His headset was hanging around his neck. His shirt was completely soaked through. He stared at Marcus with an expression that was impossible to read, somewhere between fury and awe and complete bewilderment. "Cole," he said. "Garrett," Marcus said. A long silence. "What," Garrett said slowly, "just happened?" "I am not entirely sure," Marcus said honestly. "But I kept my section secure and filed my report. Is there anything else you need from me tonight?" Garrett opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then he stepped aside and let Marcus walk past him without another word. Marcus walked out of the Meridian Sports Complex into the cool evening air of New Detroit and started the walk home. His phone was already ringing. He did not answer it. He needed to think. What Valara had said to him, about Velkara, about the strength that does not need to be seen, it was turning over and over in his mind. He had spent his entire life being told he was forgettable, invisible, unremarkable. He had believed it, mostly. Not in a self-pitying way, just as a fact, the way you accept any fact about yourself that gets repeated often enough. But she had seen something different, something she called rare, something she said kings and warriors had spent their lives searching for, and she had found it in him. He stopped at a corner and looked up at the sky. The 3 Veil ships were still there, visible even through the city lights. 3 silver shapes hanging in the darkness like something from a dream. Enormous. Impossible. Real. He thought about what it meant that they had been watching Earth for decades. Watching everything. The news, the broadcasts, the social media, the history, building models of human civilization, studying individuals, studying him. The idea should have felt invasive, unsettling, but somehow it did not. Somehow it felt, he searched for the right word, witnessed. Like all those years of quiet, steady, unnoticed work had not actually been invisible. Like someone, somewhere, had been paying attention all along. He started walking again. 3 blocks from his apartment, a black government vehicle pulled up beside him. The window rolled down. A woman in a sharp suit looked out at him. Mid-40s, short hair, the kind of face that had seen a lot and given away nothing. "Mr. Cole," she said. "My name is Director Hannah Reyes. I work for the Global Diplomatic Coordination Office. We need to talk." Marcus looked at her. "Tonight? Right now," she said. He got in the car. Director Reyes did not waste time. As the car moved through the city, she laid it out plainly. The Veil delegation had, through their official communication channel, submitted a formal request. They wanted Marcus Cole to be appointed as Earth's primary liaison to the Veil Empire. Not a diplomat, not a politician, not a general. A security guard from Gate 7. The request had caused, in Director Reyes's words, a significant amount of institutional chaos. "I imagine it did," Marcus said. "The Veil were very specific," she said. "They did not request a government official. They did not request a scientist or a military representative. They requested you, by name, by badge number, and by what they described as," she checked her tablet, "confirmed Velkara status." Marcus was quiet. "We do not know what that means," Reyes said. "Our translators are working on it. But the Veil made it clear that if we want this diplomatic relationship to proceed, If we want access to their technology, their knowledge, their alliance, they want you at the table. I am a security guard, Marcus said. You were a security guard, Reyes said. As of approximately 4 hours ago, you became the most important person on Earth. Marcus looked out the window at the city passing by. The lights, the people, the ordinary moving, breathing world that had no idea how completely everything had just changed. What happens if I say no? He asked. Reyes looked at him steadily. Then, we lose the most significant diplomatic opportunity in human history, she said, and you go back to Gate 7. Marcus nodded slowly. He looked back out the window. I will need a better badge, he said. For the first time, Director Reyes smiled. The next 72 hours were the most disorienting of Marcus Cole's life. He was moved from his apartment to a secure government facility on the outskirts of New Detroit. He was given new clothes, new identification, a new security clearance that put him above most of the people who had been running the world the day before. He was briefed by scientists, linguists, military advisors, and diplomats, all of whom looked at him with the same expression, a mixture of professional courtesy and barely concealed disbelief. He sat through 12 hours of briefings about the Vale Empire. He learned that they were approximately 4,000 years more advanced than humanity in terms of technology. He learned that their empire spanned 17 star systems and contained over 200 inhabited worlds. He learned that they had made contact with 11 other civilizations before Earth, and that of those 11, only 4 had survived the first century of contact. The other 7 had, in the careful diplomatic language of the briefing documents, failed to establish sustainable relations. Nobody explained exactly what that meant, but the implication was clear enough. He also learned more about Valara Keth. She was the 43rd ruler of the Vale Empire, having taken the throne at what translated to approximately age 19 in human years. She had ended 2 interstellar wars, reformed the Vale legal system, and expanded the empire's diplomatic reach further than any ruler in the previous 1,000 years. She was, by every available measure, one of the most capable leaders in the known galaxy. She was also, according to the briefing documents, deeply unconventional by Vale standards. She had a reputation for making decisions that her advisors considered irrational, decisions that consistently turned out to be correct. She trusted her own observations over established protocol. She valued qualities that the Vale aristocracy considered unimportant. She had, on more than one occasion, chosen advisors and allies from the lowest ranks of society, rather than the highest. Marcus read that last part twice. On the 3rd day, the formal communication came through. Valara was requesting a private meeting, just her and Marcus, with translators present but no other officials. The Global Diplomatic Coordination Office spent 6 hours debating whether to allow it. They ultimately agreed, because they did not have a better option. The meeting took place aboard the Vale flagship, in a room that Marcus would later describe as the most beautiful place I have ever been. The walls were made of a material that was simultaneously transparent and opaque. You could see through them to the stars outside. But they also reflected the interior light in patterns that shifted slowly, like breathing. The furniture was low and curved, made of something that looked like dark wood but felt warm to the touch, almost alive. Valara was already there when Marcus arrived. She had changed from her armor into something simpler, still regal, still clearly the clothing of someone important, but less martial. She looked, Marcus thought, slightly more relaxed. Or as relaxed as someone like her ever looked. She gestured for him to sit. He sat. You came, she said. You asked. He said. She studied him for a moment. You are not comfortable with what is happening to you, she said. It was not a question. No, Marcus admitted. I am not. Tell me why. He thought about it carefully. Because I do not think I am the right person for this, he said. I am not a diplomat. I am not a scientist. I do not have any special knowledge or training that would make me useful in a situation like this. The people who have been preparing for this moment their entire lives, the diplomats, the linguists, the political scientists, They are better equipped for this than I am. Valara listened to all of this without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. You just described every quality that makes you exactly the right person, she said. Marcus frowned. I do not follow. You are not performing, she said. You are not calculating. You are not managing how you appear to me, or what I will think of you. You are telling me the truth, plainly, directly, without any agenda, because that is simply what you do. She leaned forward slightly. Do you understand how rare that is? She said. I have sat across from kings who could not do what you just did. I have negotiated with leaders of civilizations far older than yours, who spent every moment of every conversation managing their image, protecting their position, calculating their advantage. They were brilliant people, powerful people, and every single one of them was fundamentally untrustworthy, because their first loyalty was always to themselves. She held his gaze. You are not like that, she said. You have no position to protect. You have no image to manage. You have no agenda. You are simply here, present, honest. And that, Marcus Cole, is the only foundation on which anything real can be built. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to build? He asked. She sat back. Something in her expression shifted, became more open, more genuine, more like a person, and less like a queen. Something that has never existed before, she said. A real alliance. Not a transaction. Not a power arrangement. Not one civilization using another for resources or strategic advantage. Something built on actual understanding. Actual trust. Between humans and the Vael, Marcus said. Between humans and the Vael, she confirmed. And eventually, between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Marcus looked out through the transparent walls at the stars. From up here, Earth was visible. A blue and white sphere hanging in the darkness. Impossibly beautiful. Impossibly fragile. That is a very large thing, he said. Yes, she said. And you think I can help build it? I think, she said carefully, that you are the only person on your planet who can. Marcus looked at her, at those golden eyes, steady and certain, and completely serious. He thought about Gate 7, about 6 years of standing at a post that nobody important ever came through, about being called furniture, about being the most forgettable person his supervisor had ever employed. He thought about Velcara, the strength that does not need to be seen. He took a slow breath. All right, he said. Tell me where to start. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. He spent his days aboard the Vael flagship, learning, not from briefing documents or government advisors, from Vaelara herself, and from the members of her inner circle who she gradually, carefully introduced him to. The Vael were not what the briefing documents had made them sound like. The documents had described them in terms of power and technology and military capability, all the things that governments care about when they are trying to assess a threat or an opportunity. But living among them, even briefly, Marcus discovered something the documents had completely missed. They were deeply, profoundly lonely. Not in the way humans get lonely. Not from isolation or lack of company. The Vael were surrounded by people, by civilization, by the constant activity of an empire that spanned 17 star systems. But they had been the most advanced civilization in their region of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. They had no equals, no peers, no one to talk to who could genuinely understand them, challenge them, surprise them. They had been watching other civilizations from a distance for so long that they had almost forgotten what it felt like to actually connect with one. Marcus understood this in a way that surprised him. He had spent his entire life being the most overlooked person in every room. He knew what it felt like to be surrounded by people and still be completely alone. He knew what it felt like to have something real inside you that nobody ever bothered to look for. He told Vaelara this one evening, as they sat in the observation room watching the stars. She was quiet for a long time after he said it. Yes, she said finally. That is exactly it. It is strange, Marcus said. I spent my whole life feeling like I was on the outside of everything, and now I find out that the most powerful civilization in the galaxy feels the same way. Power does not prevent loneliness, Valara said. Sometimes it causes it. Marcus nodded. I think that is true for humans too. The most powerful people I have ever seen, the ones with the most authority, the most status, they always seem the most isolated. Because power, when it is performed, Valara said, creates distance. It is a wall. It keeps threats out, but it also keeps everything else out. She looked at him. Velkara is the opposite of that, she said. It is not the absence of strength. It is strength that has nothing to prove. Strength that does not need a wall. Because it is not afraid. Marcus thought about this. I never thought of myself as strong, he said. I know, she said. That is part of what makes it real. The diplomatic negotiations were progressing, but slowly. The world's governments were struggling to adapt to a situation that none of their existing frameworks could handle. There were arguments about jurisdiction, about representation, about who had the authority to make decisions on behalf of humanity. There were accusations that Marcus was being used as a puppet. There were conspiracy theories about what the Veil really wanted. There were political factions trying to use the situation for their own advantage. Marcus stayed out of all of it. He did his job, which was essentially to be present, to listen, to communicate honestly, and to build trust one conversation at a time. He did not make grand speeches. He did not issue statements. He did not play political games. He just showed up. Every day. And he did what needed to be done. Valara watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. Her advisors were less satisfied. Several of them came to her privately, expressing concern about the choice of Marcus as liaison. He had no formal training, no diplomatic credentials, no understanding of interstellar politics. He was, in their view, a liability. Valara listened to all of their concerns, and then she told them something that became, in the years that followed, one of the most quoted statements in Vael diplomatic history. You are measuring him against the wrong standard, she said. You are asking whether he has the skills of a diplomat. But diplomacy, as we have practiced it for 2,000 years, has produced exactly one successful long-term alliance out of 11 attempts. Perhaps the skills of a diplomat are not what we need. Her advisors were silent. What we need, she said, is someone who cannot be corrupted. Someone whose first instinct is always toward truth. Someone who, when the situation becomes difficult, and it will become difficult, will not calculate his advantage. He will simply do what is right. She paused. I have been looking for that person for a very long time, she said. I am not going to dismiss him because he does not have the right credentials. The negotiations continued. And slowly, gradually, something remarkable began to happen. The walls started coming down, not through formal agreements or carefully worded treaties, but through something simpler and more powerful. Through actual human connection. Through Marcus sitting across from Vael officials and talking to them like people. Through him asking questions that no diplomat would think to ask. Not about politics or strategy or resource allocation, but about their lives, their families, their fears, their hopes. The Veil did not know what to do with this at first. They were accustomed to negotiation as a form of combat. Every word calculated, every gesture strategic. Marcus's straightforward, genuine curiosity disarmed them completely. One of Vaelara's senior advisors, a formidable woman named Kael Voss, who had been deeply skeptical of Marcus from the beginning, came to Vaelara after a particularly long session with him and said, simply, I understand now. Vaelara did not ask her to explain. She already knew. 6 months after the day at the Meridian Sports Complex, the first formal alliance agreement between Earth and the Veil Empire was signed. It was not the kind of agreement that governments usually sign. It was not a trade deal or a military pact or a resource-sharing arrangement. It was something that the diplomats and lawyers had struggled to categorize, because it did not fit any existing template. It was, essentially, a promise. A mutual commitment to honesty, to genuine understanding, to the kind of relationship that neither civilization had ever managed to build with anyone else before. The signing ceremony was held aboard the Veil flagship, in the same observation room where Marcus and Veolara had spent so many evenings talking. Earth's representatives were there. The Veil Inner Council was there. Cameras from every major news organization on the planet were there. Marcus stood to one side, in a new uniform, still gray, still simple, but with different insignia now. Not the badge of a security guard. The insignia of Earth's liaison to the Veil Empire. He watched as the agreement was signed. He watched the handshakes, the formal words, the careful smiles of people who were still not entirely sure what they had agreed to but understood that it was important. And then Veolara walked over to him. The cameras followed her, of course. They always did. She stood in front of him, and she looked at him with those golden eyes, and she said, quietly, so that only he could hear, "We did this. You did most of it," Marcus said. "No," she said. "I provided the opportunity. You built the bridge." He looked at her, at the queen who had walked across a stadium to sit beside the man nobody wanted, at the most powerful being in the galaxy, who had seen something in him that he had never seen in himself. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Always," she said. "That first day," he said, "at the stadium, when you walked up to Gate 7. Were you certain? Or were you taking a chance?" She considered this for a moment. A small smile crossed her face. "Both," she said. "I was certain about what I had observed. But certainty about a person, real certainty, can only come from knowing them. I had observed your pattern. I had seen your Velkara in the data. But I did not know you, so it was a risk," Marcus said. "Everything real is a risk," she said. "That is what makes it real." Marcus nodded slowly. He looked out through the observation room walls at the stars, at the galaxy stretching out in every direction, vast and ancient and full of things that humanity was only just beginning to discover. He thought about the boy he had been in Manchester. Quiet, overlooked, told in 100 small ways that he did not matter. He thought about 6 years at Gate 7, about being called furniture, about being the most forgettable person in every room. He thought about Velkara, the strength that does not need to be seen. He had always had it. He just had not known what it was called. "What happens next?" he asked. Veolara looked out at the stars alongside him. "The galaxy," she said simply. "There are 11 other civilizations within reach. Some of them are struggling. Some of them are dangerous. Some of them are simply waiting. Waiting for someone to reach out to them the way I reached out to you. You want me to do this again?" Marcus said. "With other civilizations. I want us to do this again," she said. "Together." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He thought about everything that had changed in 6 months, about the man he had been and the man he was becoming, about the extraordinary, impossible, completely unexpected direction his life had taken, all because he had shown up to work one morning and done his job. Just his job, nothing more, nothing less. And somehow, that had been enough. More than enough. It had been exactly what the universe needed. He turned to look at Veolara, at the queen who had chosen the man nobody wanted, and in doing so, had changed the course of 2 civilizations. "All right," he said. "Let's go." Here is the thing about this story that nobody talks about. Marcus Cole did not change. That is the twist. That is the part that most people miss when they hear this story for the first time. He did not suddenly become a different person. He did not discover hidden powers or secret abilities. He did not transform from a nobody into a somebody. He was always exactly who he was. Steady, honest, present, unperformed. The only thing that changed was that someone finally looked closely enough to see it. And that is the most important truth in this entire story. We live in a world that is obsessed with visibility, with performance, with the appearance of strength and success and importance. We are taught, from the time we are very young, that the way to matter is to be seen, to be loud, to be impressive, to make people notice you. We are taught, that quiet people are weak people, that invisible people are unimportant people, that if nobody is paying attention to you, it is because you have nothing worth paying attention to. Valara Keth, queen of 17 star systems, 4,000 years of civilization ahead of us, she looked at humanity and found that belief to be the single most damaging idea on the entire planet. Because the people who are performing strength are not strong. They are afraid. They are building walls and calling them power. They are making noise because they are terrified of what the silence might reveal. And the people who are quietly, steadily, consistently doing what needs to be done, without applause, without recognition, without any expectation of reward, those people are carrying something extraordinary, something that cannot be faked, something that the universe, eventually, always finds. Marcus Cole spent 6 years at Gate 7. 6 years of being overlooked, dismissed, called furniture. 6 years of doing his job with complete integrity, complete consistency, and zero performance. And the most powerful being in the galaxy flew across the stars, walked into a stadium of 90,000 people, looked past every president and general and celebrity in the building, and found him. Because Velkara, the strength that does not need to be seen, is not invisible. It is the most visible thing in the universe, to anyone who knows how to look. The question this story leaves you with is not about Marcus Cole. It is about you. How many times have you been told you are forgettable? How many times have you been overlooked, dismissed, passed over? How many times have you stood at your own Gate 7, doing your job, being steady, being honest, being present, and wondered if any of it mattered? It matters. It always mattered. You just have not met your Valara yet. And somewhere out there, in this world, or perhaps beyond it, something is watching. Something is paying attention. Something is building a model of who you really are, beneath all the noise and the performance and the judgment of people who never looked closely enough. Be patient. Be steady. Be real. The Queen is coming. If this story opened your eyes to something you needed to hear today, stay with us, because the next story goes even deeper. Here is what this story was really about. It was about the power of being real in a world full of performance. It was about the extraordinary value of quiet, consistent integrity. The kind that never asks for applause and never stops showing up. It was about the fact that the universe has a way of finding the people who are genuinely, authentically themselves, and rewarding them in ways that no amount of performance could ever achieve. Marcus Cole did not win because he was the strongest or the smartest or the most impressive. He won because he was the most real. And in a galaxy full of kings and warriors and diplomats who had spent their entire lives performing power, that was the rarest, most valuable thing of all. That is the takeaway. That is the thing to carry with you. Now, if you made it to the end of this story, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. You are curious. You are thoughtful. You are willing to sit with a story long enough to find what is really inside it. And that means you are going to love what is coming next. Hit that subscribe button right now, because the next story on this channel is going to take everything you just felt and multiply it. We are going deeper into the galaxy, deeper into the question of what humanity really is, and what we are really capable of. You do not want to miss it. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, drop a comment below. Tell us, what is your Gate 7? What is the place in your life where you have been quietly showing up, doing the work, waiting to be seen? We read every single comment, and your story matters to this community. And if you want to go even further, if you want to be part of a community of people who think deeply about these stories and what they mean, check the description below. There is a link to our newsletter where we go behind the scenes of every story, explore the ideas underneath the narrative, and connect with readers and viewers from all over the world who are asking the same questions you are. This is Hefi Sci-Fi. Humanity, finding its way, one story at a time. We will see you in the next one.